Hey everyone, it's Denise Brown from caringourway.com. It is our awards ceremony for the Caring Awards. Thanks so much for being here. So much for watching our archive. And thanks to the winners who are joining me. I'm going to give a shout out to each winner. They're going to say hello, and then we're going to start our conversation. Jesus, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Happy to be here and honored to receive this award.
Yeah, we're going to learn more about Jesus and his work in just a few minutes. Pat, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here tonight and to be part of this illustrious group.
Yes, exactly. And Joy, you're here tonight. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Denise. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You get an award.
And Alma's here. So Alma, hello. Good evening. Thanks for being here.
Hello, thank you, and happy to be here. Thank you, Denise.
Yeah, and Effie's here. Hi, Effie.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Denise. I'm honored to be here and meet so many new faces.
Yeah, it's awesome, isn't it? So we really looked at categories for this round of awards, and it was advocates, the book, and then TikTok. But really, everyone is doing advocacy. It's just a different form it takes. And so, Joy, let's start with you. So you were one of the first ones to write a book. I don't know if everybody can see
You're
it.
holding up the fourth edition.
Yes.
But Denise, you knew me when?
Yes.
You knew me in
Yes.
I think it was the late 80s.
Yes, we used to meet for dinner, and you had published your first edition.
Right.
You kept copies in the closet of your condo. I remember that.
Right.
And you were one of the first ones to write a book to support family caregivers.
Correct. This is 1985. No one had heard about elder care. They didn't even know how to spell it. They didn't know if it was one word or two. And I said, no, it's one word. And then the first audience that was attracted to this subject was human resources at corporate America. So the human resource people started to say, hey, I think my employees might be having something to do with taking care of parents, but I'm not sure. And I said, you can be sure. And then the rest is history. I for the past 30 years, I have been on the road as an advocate for caregivers. And about 10 years ago, people would come up to me after a talk and they would say, this is great. I'm taking care of my parents, but who's going to take care of me when I'm old? And I knew right then and there that would be my next book. So in 2017, the publisher came out with my book called Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old? And now I've come full circle. We caregivers are going to be very concerned about the quality of our own life as we go forward as caregivers. So we're doing two things at once. Who are we taking care of? How's it going to matter to me? And how am I going to protect my own future going forward? It's been a crazy, fabulous journey, and I'm not done.
So what has kept you fueled, passionate, moving forward with the work?
Because I have a lot of old people in my life who teach me what to do and what not to do. And the ones who are 90 and 100 years old have the best lives. And I want that for everybody. They fuel me.
Okay. Joy Laverty, the Complete Elder Care Planner, the 4th edition. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
So Pat and Jesus, let's move to you. What's interesting about your work, Pat and Jesus, is that you've really focused in on supporting within a community. Pat, you've been very active in supporting family caregivers and older adults within a church community and within the community you live. And Jesus, you really focused on supporting family caregivers within a rare disease community. After your wife's diagnosis, you got very involved in supporting other family caregivers who have a family member with the same disease process. Pat, I'm curious, you have been an amazing advocate, an amazing leader in this space for 50 years. What has shifted for you recently in terms of your focus around supporting family caregivers?
Probably the biggest difference, I started my first caregiver support group in about 1980. And probably the biggest difference between the people that were attending at that time and today is the disease, is dementia. Because in the early 80s, it was really rare to have a caregiver that was dealing with any kind that was dealing with a person they were caring for that had a dementia. It was stroke and heart attack and a variety of other things. Now I've been doing 3 caregiver support groups, and one of them specifically is for all clients, all caregivers of persons with dementia, but the other 2 aren't. But still, the other 2, probably 85 to 90% of the caregivers are dealing with dementia. So I think the challenges that come along with somebody caring for somebody with dementia are so unsurmountable and are so difficult and challenging that those people that are caring for somebody that might be dealing with a stroke or a heart attack or some other comorbidity that they're dealing with at the time don't feel the need or the support that I feel like I'm hearing from the persons that are dealing with dementia.
And you kept your support groups running through COVID.
Oh yeah. They were all in person. I had 3 in-person support groups. Now they're all virtual. Yeah.
And you hosted
Go
one.
back to in-person because like one of my support groups that was all a local support group now has people from all over the nation that come, because people can ask their sibling in Colorado to join, or if they move to California, they can still come to the support group. So it's really national now. So I'll keep them all virtual. Yeah.
And you held one of the support groups actually in your home.
I did, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which
That
I
one.
think, yeah.
Yeah.
How long did you do that?
Well, the one in Georgia has been for 21 years. But I had support groups in both Texas and Oklahoma for 20 years before that. So
what keeps you going, Pat?
It's listening to the stories and knowing the importance of support, knowing the importance of caregivers having somebody to talk to about what is important to them or what's challenged them. I don't have to say a word. I start it and I can be quiet and they will talk to each other and help each other and stuff like that. Sometimes I have to get them back on course a little bit, but just the caregivers having an opportunity to be with somebody that understands a lot of what they're dealing with is what to me is the main thing, which is why I just love the support groups.
Yeah, it's holding the space.
Yeah.
Hey, Jesus, you also hold space for family caregivers. You've been running a monthly support group for 12 or 13 years. You are a 911 to family caregivers within a rare disease community. If they have a question or a concern, they reach out to you and you make yourself available. I'm curious about the importance for you of having this safe space for family caregivers.
Oh, definitely listening to the stories, as Pat mentioned, you learn something new every time. You've been involved in this caregiving journey for many years, but every time you meet with new people or you get to go to conferences or learning all the time. And it's important to be there because you have to recognize that the caregivers need the support, and they need to recognize themselves that they need help as well, that they need to support themselves. They need to take care of themselves so they can be, ready to protect and care for their loved ones.
Jesus, how do you take care of yourself as a family caregiver, as a patient advocate, and as a support system? You are a support system
I
for
call it
fellow
me,
family caregivers.
I call it me time. I
Yes.
recognize times that I need for myself, especially the morning coffee, my me time by myself, relaxing and, exercising, which is important. But also, like, being there for the caregivers is really important because they know there is a place where they can, express themselves. Every time we meet, we don't have to explain too much because we all know what we're going through. And it's important for them to realize that they have a place they can go to, not only at the meetings every month, but also on the website or the Facebook groups. We try to meet at least once a year as well. Personally, there is a event that the Gothy Jackson Foundation prepares every year. It's called International Patient Day. We do a meeting for caregivers as well once a year. But also we do the meetings online once a month. Every last Tuesday of the month, we're always there.
Pat, I'm going to ask you, how do you manage your own self-care so that you have enough to give?
Gosh, that's a hard question. Well, I try not to, well, I do what I love. So, I mean, I just, I really do. I mean, I just, I take time to read up. Joy, I've recently bought your 4th edition. The last one I had was the 2nd edition. So it's been a while, but I've used it for years and years and years. And I'm so excited with this 4th edition. I have support myself. I mean, I go to friends and stuff like that who I know can support me. Whoops, sorry. The lights go off automatically if I don't move.
It looked like you were landing a little bit, like you were flying a little bit, then you landed.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Yeah, I think we talk about family caregivers caring for themselves, taking that time for self-care, but in our advocacy work, it's important for us to really take that time to figure out, well, what is it that keeps me in good shape? Yeah. Giving, even if you feel like the safe space for family caregivers can run itself, you're still giving it, you're still protecting it, you're still scheduling it, you're still showing up for it. It's still an energy source for you.
Right, that's true.
Okay, let's move to Alma and Effie. What I love too about tonight is we are looking at the generations who are making impact. It's kind of fun. Okay,
Hi.
Alma and Effie, it's good to have you guys here.
Thank you. FYI, I am in the middle of caregiving
Yes,
duties. I have my
yes,
mom and she
yes.
is sundowning, it's that time. So I will step in and out if needed. But happy to be here.
Yeah, and wherever you need to move, we'll move with you.
Thank you.
I'm in Bradford.
Yeah, Alma and Effie, you guys have used social media. If you have a podcast, Alma, you have really shared your story on social media. And so you're using the tools that are available now that really weren't available to us when we all first started, which I think is awesome. I'm curious how you guys figured out how to share your stories in a way that helped others to share theirs, but also in some regard, when you needed to be private about certain situations, kept those private. I'll go with you first.
Well, when I first started sharing, I started Mom's page to help out the family because dementia runs in our family. My mom is a baby of 12. So when grandma was diagnosed, when my aunt was diagnosed, and then mom was diagnosed, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of red flags happening here. So I wanted to share with the family. And then it evolved into like sharing our story with the world. And I wanted to share the real like situations that we were dealing with. Because I saw a lot of things on social media that were like fun and lively. I'm like, I'm not dealing with that. I'm dealing with some really serious stuff here. But then eventually it evolved to like helping others out. and it just grew into this beautiful community. And so I'm like, all right, I'm not here just to share our story. I'm receiving so many amazing things and so much amazing support. So it's just, it's become so much more than I ever expected.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's awesome. Effie, let's move to you. You have a podcast that has been inspired by your son and his rare disease, and your podcast title is fabulous. It is Once Upon a Gene, Gene. So how do you balance that? I want to be public about what's happening in our family, and then there's some things that I think, I'll keep that private. How do you find the balance?
You know, I haven't ever felt pressured to necessarily hide anything or share a lot of stuff. Um, my son Ford, part of his rare disease that he has, also carries intellectual disability, and he can't talk. So I do feel like I have a duty to a lot of families to kind of share some of that harder stuff. And then the other stuff that I share, sometimes I feel like it's definitely okay to share, because when Ford grows up, he's not going to know I shared it. You know what I mean? I definitely keep his privacy, around all the things that we take care of hygiene wise and everything like that for Ford. Of course, I don't necessarily want the kids from his school to eventually land on my page and really know anything about that. That's definitely something I keep private within my personal caregiving community. But on social media, I share pretty much a full spectrum, other than those like private moments at home with a person that nobody wants anyone to know about, unless it's a question that's being asked to me in confidence from another caregiver who needs advice.
I'm curious, Epi, when you knew you had a podcast.
I remember the second I knew I had a podcast. In the beginning of our journey, it was the most extremely isolating time. There are not any resources and research or anything for rare disease, but especially when my son was born. At that point, there really weren't that many podcasts on the scene either. Thankfully, they've blown up, especially since the pandemic. So I love that. But I remember just searching and searching and searching for content when I was kind of in the thick of it in the beginning. I was looking for books on rare disease and, disabled parenting and stuff like that. And 98% of the stuff I found was either very religious or really just not speaking to me. And I found randomly one day, like about 5 podcasts, and one in particular, I always mention them. Sean and Kyle from the Two Disabled Dudes, they live with a disease called Friedrich's ataxia, and they have a podcast, and I found it, and I started listening to these dudes, and they were laughing, and they were happy, and they were educating me, and they were doing all this stuff. They were riding bikes across America, and they're disabled, and I was like, wow, they're happy, and they have a life, and everything is not awful. And I just totally felt like I had finally found my people, and I felt immediately like I wasn't alone anymore. And I was like, this is what I have to do. I have to make this space for people like me. And so I just Googled how to do it and really Wild West styled it and made it.
Yeah, I think once you have the idea and you can see how passionate you are about it, you can't do anything other than Google it and then do it.
Mhm.
You have to keep going. Alma, I'm curious, how do you maintain your self-care during your caregiving days?
Um, well, as Pat mentioned earlier, I'm like, I do what I love, and I love meeting and networking and connecting with other people. Recently, I just joined the Tournament of Roses here in Pasadena. I am a white suitor, so that is part of my self-care, to be out there, with beautiful floats and just, connecting and networking with amazing people, and also advocating for dementia, and just, spreading the word, and just, keeping people aware of, prevention, and, for caregiver support and just different things. I also have 2 kids, so they keep me very busy. My son is my son's 24 and my little one is 12. So I am part of the PTA, and I just, try to keep myself as busy and alert and motivated as possible. So I see that as my self-care.
Yeah.
That I'm not just in caregiver mode. I'm well-rounded,
Yeah. Effie, how about for you?
Well, for about 5 years, I've had this giant magnetic chalkboard thing on my fridge, and I have drawn really gorgeously 4 oxygen tanks, and I drew a picture of the 4 things that I had to have every single day, no matter what, which was my non-negotiables. So not only did it give me a sense of that I was actually accomplishing something in the day instead of just being like completely drowning in caregiving duties. But they were the things that I needed to sustain me. So in my oxygen tanks is breathing, going outside, eating something healthy, and drinking water. And so those have been my 4 things that I have done every single day for the last 5 years. And also walking is a huge part and has always been not only part of my mental health, my healing, my emotional well-being, but I've also recently started a really powerful walking club for my community, and people are walking every single day all across the world, and they're sharing photos every single day, and they're encouraging each other to get outside and take steps. But then also on the weekends to actually try to meet other caregivers in your neighborhood that you didn't even know existed, and meet people in real life rather than just being online all the time, which is our world. So those are the things that I do, my 4 non-negotiable oxygen tanks, and I also walk, and walking has been one of the most transformational things in my self-care.
I love that. You know what I also think is interesting is there are family caregivers in our neighborhood. We just don't know it. And for me, I realized it when an ambulance pulled in front of a house across the street from me. And I asked my neighbor, is everything okay? And she said, oh, they take care of their mother who lives there. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I actually had this idea that didn't go anywhere, but maybe we could resurrect it, where if you were in a current caregiving situation, you would tie an orange ribbon somewhere on a tree branch, around the tree, on your balcony. And if you were a former family caregiver, you would tie a green ribbon somewhere in front of your house to represent, I have been there, I get it, I'm a resource for you. Because I do think that we have family caregivers in our neighborhood. We just don't know it. We just don't know it. Okay, so I am going to, oh yes, there's a question from Joy. Alma, what is a white suitor?
A white suitor. So, if I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with the Tournament of Roses parade that happens in Pasadena every New Year's Day. All those people that are dressed in their white suits and that walk along with the parade, that's a white suitor. There's 935 volunteers that get together throughout the entire year to make the Rose Parade happen. So I am part of that.
Isn't that amazing? The power of volunteers. That's awesome.
All volunteers. Yeah, it's an incredible feeling once it's all over and done with. We are currently inducting the new president for this year and this week actually. And then we are going to announce the new theme for next year's parade. So exciting stuff.
And the floats are always so beautiful.
Oh my goodness.
And it's
yes.
really amazing what people create from one flower that
Yes,
becomes 2 flowers. That's 3 flowers. It's really amazing.
it is.
I have a question to all the winners, and you are welcome to jump in when you are ready. What do you want to change?
Definitely, there are, según statistics in the United States, more than 48 million caregivers. We need to, spread the word and let people know that there are people doing a great job taking care of their loved ones. Also, there is so many information that is needed out there, especially to navigate the health care system, and so many resources that are available, but people don't know how to find them or try to, teach them how to navigate through their journey.
Yeah, I love that. Education, and really not only educating family caregivers about how to manage the experience in the systems, but educating others about how family caregivers manage throughout the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Go
I
for it, Pat.
Okay, I would say the stigma around and the lack of understanding around diseases, no matter what they are. I mean, I work mostly with dementia, but people, need to do their homework. They need to study. They need to see what the facts are, and so when it's up to us as advocates for all of those people, those caregivers, to help them to be able to express your knowledge about the diseases, and then to them to be able to express their knowledge and their information at it, so more people know about what's happening.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
really
I love that. Yeah, Joy.
I want to change the model of beginning to look at caregiving from a medical model to a social model, where we engage in conversations about quality of life rather than you're sick and we got to do something. So this means that our awareness of who we are with at any given time, because we're all aging together, we would engage in a quality of life conversation about money, about living, about eating, about socializing, about having a life of purpose. All of this would begin as a natural consequence of aging together. So this has nothing to do with being sick. It has to do with being with each other, no matter who's sick and who's well. So that we're all people first, and then care comes when it comes. And that it doesn't change the dynamic of how we relate to people. We are not our illnesses. So that's what I want to change. I want to change the mindset of caregiving begins in a medical model. No, it doesn't. It begins right now when you think about somebody and you care about them.
I've been thinking about this too, because I have a colleague who will regularly quote another colleague who had said, caregiving is not on anyone's bucket list. And I always thought, well, caring for other people in our lives is always part of our bucket list. We always want to be present to support others, whether or not they are ill for a short term or long term, or whether or not they're healthy until the end. I think it should be on everybody's bucket list to be involved and supportive and caring for others in our life, our family members, our neighbors, our members of our community.
To your point, Denise, I want to change the word care to caring.
Yeah, there we go. Yep. It's on our bucket list. It is. We want to be there for people. We do.
We're already doing it.
Yeah.
We're already doing it. It's not about somebody getting sick.
And I also think that sometimes people just don't know how to step up when there is a need. There's fear, there is nervousness. And I think if we just made it so that everybody learned how to be in that place of support and caring for others, it's easier.
Exactly. If you get the opportunity to tell your story, is very important. When you tell your story, you're changing lives as well. People are listening. And it, like Alma mentioned it earlier, not everything is a parade of roses. You go through a lot of situations day to day, but you got to tell the truth. Be yourself. Life continues. Just adapt to a new journey. And like I always say, there are always better days ahead. People sometimes go through different times or different days, but got to be truthful and continue your journey and live life. Life is beautiful.
Effie, Alma, go ahead. You raised your hand. What do you want to change?
Something that we try to do here in our family, because we are definitely a team. We try to include mom in everyday life and I really try to focus on normalizing dementia specifically, just to not hide away our loved ones and like treat them like, you know, like it's a plague, you know, just normalize it. Like, you know, they're still here. They're still our loved ones. They still like feel and have emotions and everything, and just normalize it and try to have them included in just, you know, day-to-day lives as much as possible. I mean, within, you know, certain parameters, of course, you know, respecting them too, and, you know, making sure that they're being cared for. But we try to take mom out as much as possible, just out to the stores and everything. And if she has, you know, an episode, or if she's having a tough moment, you know, we try to create a space, you know. And again, the whole idea is to normalize it out, you know, in the open, like caregivers in the wild. I'm always saying, you know, that we're out there, you know, and our loved ones should be out there too. And they should be enjoying life just like us.
Yeah, because everyone has a place within our
Mhm.
community and
Yes.
serves a purpose within our community. Everyone does.
Yes.
Effie, how about you? What do you want to change?
Okay, like a million things for sure. I'm gonna give you a top hits list though that are really important to me that I actively work on now. Locally, one is I stalk our city councils all over, at least within like 50 miles of me, when I see that there's going to be a remodel of any playground. And I insert myself and join all of those long bureaucratic calls and join the email list to make sure that if the playground is being updated, that it's going to be accessible and inclusive for people who have physical disabilities, and other sensory issues, of course. So that is one thing that I would like to change, is not having to be there to do that, and that it would just be natural, right? That everyone thinks about the disability community when they're making something new, especially now. So that's one thing. Another thing that is really important to me to change is Diagnosis Day. Um, you know, it's so horrible. It like always makes me emotional. Even now, families will message me and tell me how their diagnosis was delivered, and it is bedside manner, sure, obviously can always be an issue, but they're always told that there's nothing anyone can do, and there's no hope, and there's no research, and there's no organization, and they really just need to go home and love their kid and put them in some early intervention therapy. I would really like to change that and get these families empowered sooner than later. I think it heals, it rapidly increases the healing time. It empowers these advocates to, you know, move forward in whatever way they want to be an advocate, whether it's at home with their family being the most amazing caregiver, or whether it's raising $1 bazillion for research. But I think that if we give these families resources, like Once Upon a Gene, right away, that they won't feel so isolated, they won't feel so alone, and they won't, their families won't fall apart, you know, their careers won't fall apart as much. Like, I think that that is the most crucial step in our rare disease landscape, is how we're delivering that, and not making families feel like they don't matter. I guess, yeah, that. And then caregivers, my friends, my community, I just want them to know, like Jesus was saying, that the power of your story is immense, and the impact that it has, you might not even ever know about it. It could be across the world, and you could have changed someone's life. You could have solved a disease area problem for someone. You could have transformed so many things, and you will. And it is amazing to see what happens to those people when they got whatever line that you cast out, and to watch them move forward. So the power of storytelling is very important to me. And I think that helping families hone that and understand that and realize how to tell it and who to tell it to, is really important for all of our jobs as caregivers, and especially in the rare disease space.
Diagnosis Day is horrible. And I don't think people recognize how horrible it is until you have a diagnosis day. And there's a new podcast that I'm launching with my colleague and friend Lance. It's called The Caregivers Journal. We were going to try to get Effie on for Diagnosis Day, which is our first episode. And she's actually going to join us for the path to the diagnosis, because the path to the diagnosis can be just as horrid. And Alma's going to join us for that first episode where we talk about Diagnosis Day. And really, it's this idea of let's figure out what's the best practice for families so that it's not just what feels like the end of life, but yet difficult news, and there are next steps you can take. You don't have to stop living. You can keep going, and we'll help you figure that out.
Yes,
Okay.
actually,
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that especially when your loved one is diagnosed with a rare disease, the journey is very tricky. You get misdiagnosed many times, and then when you get a correct diagnosis, sometimes it's too late for treatments. Or so it's very important. That's why we need to be out there telling our story, because people will recognize symptoms sometimes. I wanted to mention also that we have a great opportunity, my wife and myself, to have a group, a support group for Spanish speakers as well, not only in the United States, but all over the world. And we recognize the differences between the health systems in different countries, the situations for different patients and caregivers. So it's important to, try to spread the word in as many countries as possible as well.
A caregiving experience is an emotional experience. We are humans that share the same emotionals, the same emotions, the same emotional capacity, the same emotional impact, which is why globally you can meet a family caregiver and have a conversation and know that they understand what that impact is like. We're just about to wrap it up. I wondered if any of our winners have any last oh, actually, I'm going to ask our winners one last question, and that is for those who are watching, who are thinking, wow, I need to get out there and start making a difference. What could be one first step that someone could take that could be impactful for other family caregivers?
I'm blown away by the difference in generations, but yet the theme of caregiving, and being someone who sees something and then takes action. Effie, I'm listening to you intently, and I want people who are dealing with the whole other spectrum of caregiving to hear how it's possible to have a mindset that is positive, that is forward thinking, and is advocating, which is the loudest thing I heard you say, is you are not sitting back, you are taking action. And I need to deliver your message, and I will, to caregivers who are dealing with the other end of the age bracket, and tell them, no complaining anymore, kids. You need to listen to this person, Effie Parks, on how she takes action. So thank you, Effie.
Hey, what other suggestions for a first step for those who are thinking, I got to get out there?
What I mentioned earlier, tell your story. Telling your story changes lives and saves lives.
Yeah.
Definitely. That will be the first step for people. It'll be easier. You don't know if you're a listener or you can create media content or anything, but by telling your story written or on a video, or even to a friend or to a stranger, tell the story that will change life.
And my advice would be to educate yourself. I mean, don't make judgments. Don't, until you have, and you might not have walked in the shoes of somebody with a certain disease or something like that, but you can educate yourself, and you can read all that you possibly can, and then you can share that with others, so that everybody gets past the stigmas and the stereotypes.
Which makes me think, Pat, when we're on social media and we see someone sharing a story, our advocacy efforts can include sharing a message of support for them.
Right.
That can be a very simple thing that we all commit to doing.
Yeah, we all can do that. Right.
Yeah, yeah. Alma, what would you add?
Ask questions. Just even if you're shy, or you don't want to share, your story, just ask. ask, somebody can offer some advice. And I know, for example, for me, I asked for help at my work human resources department, or like just any associations that could possibly help me with dementia care. And I didn't have to completely share my story. I was just curious, just be curious, just ask. You never know where it might lead you.
I think that too all the time. And what, there's a couple good questions I think you can ask everyone, which is, what support could help me? What support could help my caree? And if you ask everyone out there, then you start to get them to think, oh, what support could help her and her caree? It's just a nice way to kind of prod people to think about, oh gosh, I got to be ready for an answer next time Alma comes, because she's going to ask. I love that. Effie,
So
what would
Alma,
yeah,
I'm
go
gonna tell you that
for it,
when
Ed.
I worked for a county, 5,000 employees, and I started a caregiver support group for working employees.
Mhm.
And we met once a month for 1 hour over lunch. And I brought a speaker in because the people really didn't want to spill their guts in front of people they were working with, but they were interested in a lot of topics. So I would bring in a speaker every month on a different caregiving topic, and ran that support group for 7 years. And it was just so helpful to the working employee.
Yes. I wish I would have had you back when I was looking for somebody in 2015. Because yeah, I couldn't find anything like that. So you would have been amazing.
And something else that you don't realize that through this journey, you meet so many wonderful people that are like your friends now, your family, and you relate so much. You get to meet people, and every time you see them again and you hug them, and you don't have to explain too much. You don't have to tell too much of the story, because we know each other. We know what we go through.
Yeah. Effie, what would you suggest to someone who wants to take a step?
Okay, well, I'm going to say 2 things. If you're not a caregiver, but you need to know how to support one, I've made a really handy handout for people, because we're always asked that, right? How can I help you? And then sometimes it's just too exhausting to even tell them how they can help you. So I made this thing for those people, and they can kind of pick and choose their gifts, right? Because sometimes people don't want to help you do your laundry, but maybe they like tending to your lawn. So I would say that for those people on that outside of the ring. And for caregivers who are living in it, I would say think about it and find your why, find your people. Your network is going to be so valuable, and to always make sure that you're utilizing it and getting to know people. Poking around on podcasts and people's blogs and people's books, and kind of, I don't know, see what feels warm to you, right? See what kind of speaks to you, and get your why, so you can kind of have that anchor that you're always going to go back to. Pitch yourself, email people, tell them, hey, I would like to tell my story on your podcast. Practice at home if you're nervous, like someone just mentioned, like record yourself on your computer and see how it feels to tell a little bit of your story. I think just kind of getting out there and doing it. I've recently discovered that the fact that I'm not a perfectionist is actually my caregiving superpower, because I can just do things and start it, and I don't have to plan, and I don't have to have everything perfect, because it can find its footing as it goes. Otherwise, when are you ever going to do it? So I would just encourage you to be brave. And I think you probably already know what kind of calls to you. So just jump in.
I follow a marketing guru, Seth Godin, and he always says, ship it. And that's just what you do, Effie. He just is like, if you're creating a product, ship it. It'll only get better after you ship it, right? You will only learn what people want after you put it out there, after you start blogging, after you start your podcast, after you create a community. You got to put it out there. Got to put it out there. Okay, Effie, how can our viewers be in touch with you and follow your work?
Well, it's basically impossible to miss me. So my name is Effie Parks. The show is Once Upon a Gene, onceuponagene.com. You can subscribe or follow to the podcast on any podcast app on your phone. or you can listen to it on the desktop if you'd rather. My email is hello@onceuponagene.com, and I'm on all the social media platforms. So you can find me pretty easily.
Yeah, and I found Effie on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great community for family caregivers. If you haven't gone on LinkedIn, that's a great place.
LinkedIn's the best. It's one
Yes.
of my top 2 favorites.
Yes. Joy, how can our viewers be in touch with you and follow your work?
elderindustry.com, and I'm everywhere, social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, you name it, Instagram, and Pinterest. I love Pinterest. Go there too. I have all kinds of ideas about things to add to the quality of life of people we care for.
I
So
love
I'm
that.
everywhere too. Just Google me. I'm
Okay.
good.
And Jesus, how can we follow your work?
Through the Godfrey Jackson Charitable Foundation website. There are many resources there, not only for caregivers, also for patients. And I just posted the group link for our Facebook group for the caregivers.
And I'll include that in our show notes for those who are watching the archive. I'll include all this information in our show notes, so it's easy for everyone to be in touch with our winners. And Pat, how can our viewers be in touch with you?
I put my email in there. I mean, I don't have a web page. I am on LinkedIn. I work at a church in older adult and caregiver ministries. So, but that was my email for the church.
Okay. And Alma?
Well, you can find me on TikTok as the Caregiver Comadre. I'm targeting Latino caregivers, just trying to lure them in because our community is very, very shy. So I'm the only one out there. And I am also on Instagram as Mom Has Dementia and as the Caregiver Comadre. So just looking for comadres and compadres to join us, as we advocate for dementia caregiving.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to all our winners. Thanks to those who have joined us live. We so appreciate it. If you'd like to keep in touch with us, you can join us on caringourway.com. We have a couple special events coming up. You can sign up to get a free coaching session with one of our certified caregiving consultants. That's on January 27th. It's called Coaching for Caregivers. Our Caregiving Listener Project, which provides you with a caring and compassionate listener who hears your 4-minute story, is on National Caregivers Day. And that's the 3rd Friday, February 16th. You can sign up to be a storyteller. And then our new podcast launches in February. It's called the Caregivers Journal, and we'll keep you posted on that as well. Thanks to everybody so much. Such a lovely evening. Congrats to the winners. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
And thanks to everybody for watching.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
take care.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.